One of the most exciting events of the entire year for us Northwest Indiana rail fans is the CPKC holiday train, running down from Canada and making its way through the CPKC trackage rights over the end of Chicago line and into Chicago in the very early morning hours of a day near Thanksgiving. This year it was on November 23rd at 3:09 a.m., as this map shows, being one of the very few special moves that is actually trackable that goes through the depot. Obviously, it's an absolute priority for me to catch every year. However, since it runs at such an awkward schedule and is so popular, if you want good parking, you have to be there hours in advance, which for me is nice because it means I get to catch extra trains. But taking a look at some of the shots I got last year, yeah, the lighting situation wasn't the best. So I decided to fix that to get this thing. This is a bronze 6,000 lumens high-powered spotlight, or as I like to call him, Bright Bentley. It's bright, like really bright. However, since I was planning to catch a lot of trains on the holiday train trip and I had no idea what they would be, I decided I had to test out Bright Bentley first before that happened. And so, on November 19th, me and my dad made a trip down to Walkerton to test out Bright Bentley. However, as we were driving there, we found our route over the CN tracks blocked by some maintenance work. They're doing a lot of maintenance and new track laying here at the crossing in Stillwell, which meant it was closed. At least I got to see the maintenance of way equipment, but yeah, that severely delayed our arrival in Walkerton. However, there was barely anything running, so it didn't really matter. When we got to Walkerton, we found that our encounter with CN earlier was actually foreshadowing, because the first train we saw was an eastbound CSX I-166 with a duo of CN engines, both being GEVOs, one at the head end and one as an NDPU. Normally I-166 is a CPKC transfer, but it does have CN power from time to time for whatever reason. Of course, with this being my first time using Bright Bentley, I didn't know exactly where to set it up or how it would work. So I just set it up at a relatively far distance from the tracks, thinking that the light would be bright enough to illuminate the full train. And it was, but only in a very small section, and I was quite upset about that later on, but in the moment I didn't really realize. I was too excited with the hype of trying out my new light and seeing rare CN foreign power. After reviewing the footage, I realized that the light was simply far too concentrated for it to really work properly, as only a small section of the train was fully lit up. So I decided to place the light way farther back, which was a mistake, as proven by the next train, which was CSX I-171 heading westbound with a set of BNSF GEVOs. I placed the light farther back, obviously, and it didn't work because now it wasn't bright enough to fully illuminate the train. Great. Since that shot was so bad, and this was Walkerton, the millisecond the head-end power passed, we jumped into the car and blasted down Highway 6 in an attempt to catch up with the head end again. However, it was going so fast that we never did, unfortunately. By the time we got to the spot I wanted to catch it at, Range Road Crossing, we already saw the lights of the EOTD in the distance and knew we had missed it. That trip wasn't a great success, namely because the light was simply too concentrated. I don't know why I thought it wouldn't be. It's a spotlight. The whole point is to light up one small area very brightly. So I had a thought. Actually, my dad had a thought. Props to him, because I never would have realized this otherwise. He told me, why don't you just open up the front and literally pull the cone that concentrates the light out? I thought for a second, that's really dumb, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I did. And holy moly, it actually worked. I can't believe it, but somehow it improved the light drastically. At least while I was testing it at my house. Now with the modifications, I had to test it again in real-life applications. And so, the day right before the holiday train was running on November 21st, I know it should be 22nd, but, it was at like 3 a.m. and I was staying up the previous night, so it was basically the day before, I found a perfect excuse to go out at night because Amtrak 41 had an absolutely lovely Phase 6 unit, number 302, in the lead, and so I forced my aunt to go out there so I could test out the light and get a shot of 302. And almost the millisecond we arrived, 302 rounded the corner and I got the shot, which proved that this new lighting arrangement was far superior to the old one. Even though we had already gotten the target for the night, the signals almost immediately changed in both directions, indicating that 2 more trains were coming. And since I still wanted to test out my light in different applications, we decided to wait for them. The first being NS22M with junk power. Which was then shortly followed by westbound NS269 with more junk power. With all those tests now concluded, I was ready for the holiday train, which decided to run early on November 23rd, which completely shocked me because I've never seen the holiday train run early, and last year it was like 2 hours late. So I was quite shocked when I heard that news. Either way, it meant I had to go out to the depot earlier, so at around 12:30 we made our way there. And in typical depot fashion, as soon as we got there, the signals for an eastbound were already green, and didn't take very long for NS10R to show up with a boring pair of bean sniffer Gevos. After that train passed, the signals both immediately turned green for more trains, which I was not shocked by considering this is the depot at night. And coming just in time to catch them was my good friend Northwest Indiana Railfan. And almost as soon as we were both set up, we saw the eastbound lights of NS276, which, funnily enough, behind the boring C6M as the leader, the 2 mid-DPUs were actually the exact same 2 GE junk engines I saw leading 269 the previous night. And of course, the westbound followed a few minutes later, being NS267. Now, if you've been keeping up with this channel or are familiar with this line at all, you know that NS267 is the BNSF transfer. And I was fully expecting a set of BNSF power on this, especially when I saw the low headlight. Nope! It was an utterly disgusting, horrible, revolting Union Pacific Gevo. Ugh! After that, the signal turned green. I was sure it wasn't going to be the holiday train until I looked at Liam's phone, because he apparently has an app that will tell you the exact position of the holiday train, and I had no idea it existed. Oof. Anyways, it was in Rolling Prairie already, so we knew that this westbound had to be it. And that was oh so confirmed when it got closer and closer, and you can't see it in the video because the light was too bright on the holiday train, but we could tell when it ducked behind the crossing gates that it was it, and we could see the lights. And it was absolutely flying. This is probably why it was so early, but holy moly, bro was booking it. I had no idea the GP20s could even go this fast. At the time, I was kind of upset it was going so fast because I didn't get a good look at the train, but I've gotten a good look at the train for 2 years, and it going this fast is definitely a unique shot. Not to mention the awesome horn show we got from the very nice engineer. So overall, a very fun catch.
Okay, guys, it's 2025 to the Pacific Holiday Train. Here we go.
And with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. The holiday train is always a fun train to catch, but man, it feels underwhelming after doing it for 2 years in a row. Especially after all the trouble I had to go through for the last two, it felt so weird. It felt like I was almost cheating by catching it this easily. But hey, at least I wasn't freezing my butt off for 4 hours straight, so that's a plus. Anyways, make sure to catch those units while you can, especially the festive ones, and I will see you in the next video.